the ship's sinking! We've got to go!
Bravo 6, come in, damn it!
Big Bird, this is Bravo 6. We're on our way out. On your feet, soldier. We are leaving.
It's the franchise that revolutionised the first-person shooter genre for the 7th generation. Ever since the release of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare back in November 2007, the market in the coming years would be soon flooded with modern military shooters, all opening up new opportunities in both multiplayer and single player. A nice new fresh concept for gamers to invest their time on, given that before the most popular genre for this tended to be based in World War II. Call of Duty 4, despite being well known for its Michael Bay mission design, it was still able to tell a story of a modern day conflict that was grounded in reality and not immersion breaking in any way. An instant classic nonetheless. But 10 years later, things are different. A series that was this blueprint and influenced so many other gaming development companies has now sunk as low as it ever has. So today, let's break down why Call of Duty is in the position that it's in.
Target's down. I think you blew off his arm.
Call of Duty sales went from 6.45 million with Call of Duty 3 in 2006, all the way up to 17.2 million when Modern Warfare released. Without spending enough time to talk about why Call of Duty 4 was so good to get me past the 10-minute mark, let's just keep it short and sweet. So why was the game so successful? Because it was new and different, even for players who had played the previous games. Much more expansive than any other shooter available at the time, and obviously everything it offered in the game was executed well. Not a perfect game by any means, but then again, no game ever is. Accessibility was another key component that helped the game rise up. There wasn't much of a learning curve to get the basics on how to play the game, so it wasn't so daunting for the newbies to hop on as well. This is a tool that games today consider watering down in order to grow their communities, but I'll get into more detail about that in a minute. The following year we got another Call of Duty, and then the next year we got another one, and then another one. Okay, so every single year since then we have had a new Call of Duty, and it reached its sales peak with Modern Warfare 3 in 2011, around 30.7 million copies sold. So in the 6 years when the franchise was on the rise, what did they bring in with new entries to keep things fresh? World at War introduced Nazi zombies. Modern Warfare 2 improved off of a lot of aspects from the first Modern Warfare, the highlight being the kill streaks and a new third mode called Spec Ops. Black Ops took us through the Cold War, which is not explored very often by video games, at least by the big budget companies. Now Modern Warfare 3 didn't offer anything new for me, so that's the first strike. Black Ops 2 was just Black Ops in 2025, but separated itself nicely with all the new technology it offered in the time period. Ghosts had a dog.
Dog. One of the fascinating new additions to your squad is a dog. This is someone you care about.
Our new dog model is taken from high-resolution scans of an actual SEAL Team service dog.
The next 3 games took us into the future with advanced movement, and of course came along the virus that we know as supply drops. And just recently we've gone back to World War II. So why has this franchise had such an inconsistent direction over the last 10 years? Going back to the accessibility, unlike a lot of shooters today, there is a fine line between playing average and playing MVP. COD to some extent didn't have that. As long as you nailed your aim and positioning, you were on your merry way. And it's been like that for some time. Part of why I've played Battlefield for so long is because of the huge scale of weapons, vehicles and gadgets to try out, the many different approaches to attacking and defending objectives, and the variation of every single firefight you encounter. And Call of Duty has not helped itself in that particular aspect, since nearly all the maps from the recent years of Call of Duty have been that same 3-lane design with different skins painted over, which is restricting the play experience even more now that the player has less room to move around. Back in Call of Duty 4, 5 and 6 you had maps like Overgrown, Airfield and Wasteland that were a bit more open and gave you time to at least think and offered unique combat engagements. So in what way could Call of Duty continue to be annual and still somehow manage to be one of, if not the best selling game each year? I use this word loosely, innovation, which meant for Call of Duty going into the future with advanced movement and wall running. something to make the game feel more unique to its predecessors. The number one complaint over the years from everybody when it comes to Call of Duty is that the game doesn't change enough. And with the games from 2014 to 2016, you got change, but not in a good way. Now when the community said we want change, I don't think we specified on let's go to space. But here's a question I want to present to you guys. If Call of Duty never went down the futuristic path from 2014 to 2016, what would you have wanted to see change? Now the last Call of Duty game I owned was Black Ops 2. Every other game since then I've just borrowed from friends because that lack of depth that Call of Duty has begins to show its cracks much faster, especially if you play the game like every day, and I would feel stupid if I had spent good money on it. Another example could be Star Wars Battlefront 2, which I bought on day one and I regret it hugely, primarily because of how shallow the gameplay felt over time. I'm not gonna lie, when I went back to play Black Ops 2 to record some footage for this video, I was actually having fun, but I guess there was a little bit of nostalgia floating around there, and on top of that, I only played like 5-6 matches over the course of a week. But I reckon that's just how I find the most fun in games like that today. You know, Call of Duty would be perfect to just have a few games before you went to work or school, or even for those people who just have busy lives and don't have as much time to game. But for me, and I'm sure the majority of you guys watching who have more time to game, when we have a game like this that has very little depth to its playing field and doesn't require meaningful strategy to overpower your enemies, it is more likely that you'll leave quicker, because you've exploited all the mechanics behind the game, so there is no reason to keep on going. Now with the community growing rapidly year after year, more focus was put on the multiplayer, where Infinity Ward, Treyarch and eventually Sledgehammer would continue to retain that same enjoyable formula that Call of Duty is known for. Now in my mind, as crazy as it sounds, the decision to go into the future for 3 years might have just bought Call of Duty some extra years. They outraged fans, they pushed them to the very edge, and just before they were ready to pull the plug, they went back to World War II, and everybody gave it another chance. And it's the same thing I'm starting to see with Black Ops 4, which is releasing this year, because Treyarch are widely regarded as the best of the three developers. Most of us are eager to see what they bring to the table, and we've already heard that it's rumoured to be there will not be a traditional campaign releasing with it. And it's like, Christ's sake, how far do we have to push this? Call of Duty met fans' requests halfway by delivering on change, but it sacrificed its identity to do so. And now all that is left to sell copies, in my opinion, is just the IP, having those 3 words Call of Duty in the title. What I'm about to present to you guys here has been talked about by other YouTubers in the past, most notably Batman Dobbins, so some of you may have already heard about this, but if you haven't, then happy days, I get to break the news to you. I just wanted to disclaim that quickly in case anyone tries to accuse me of plagiarism. So back in 2013, PC Gamer published an article on their website, which I'll also link in the description if you want to check it out. It's an interview with the Tripwire Interactive president, John Gibson. Tripwire were the developers of the Red Orchestra games. I'm sure most of you have heard of focus group testing research, where developers during the development cycle of game bring in primarily popular community members to playtest the game and give feedback, which is important because these playtesters, whether you like it or not, represent us. They represent us as the community, what we want. And Gibson in this article talks about his frustrations during that period of receiving focus group feedback for Red Orchestra 2. Bear in mind, this game is probably regarded as the anti-COD game. Everything at your disposal has weight to it, as you see in the gameplay here. And when the focus groups provided feedback, everybody would say the same thing: it's not Call of Duty enough. And Gibson quoted in this article, "Just listening to all the niggling, pedantic things that they would complain about that made them not want to play the game, I just thought, I give up. Call of Duty has ruined this whole generation of gamers." He then proceeds to talk about the skill gap compression difference in Call of Duty, and he goes as far as to compare getting kills in Call of Duty to pulling a lever on a slot machine. And as for when Gibson witnessed how the focus group players played the game, he said, and I quote, "These guys, when I actually watch them play, they're very poor FPS players, and I don't think it's because they are incapable of getting good. I think it's because they never had to get good. They get enough kills in Call of Duty to feel like they're awesome, but they never really had to develop their FPS skills beyond that." End quote. And during this time, maybe since 2011-12, when Call of Duty was really the gaming darling, with these focus group players struggling to find fun in any other shooter because of the slightly higher accessibility and learning curves, every COD competitor like Halo, Battlefield and eventually Battlefront recognise that attracted gamers alike. Just make sure that the skill gap is compressed enough, you can expect these FPS players who are so attached to COD to not be too scared and try out their game. And that's exactly what they did with games like Halo 4, Battlefield Hardline and the recent 2 Battlefronts. Some even may suggest Battlefield 1 as well to some extent. And all of these games toned down their original formula, simply sacrificing their depth and replay value in order to catch these unfortunate specimens. But all that waited around the corner for these games was karma. All the loyal fans who identified these franchises for how they originally played hated this new approach and left the game much quicker than previous titles. I mean, look at the track records for these games, and this would continue where we just got several years of disappointments in the FPS market. Now, as consumers, we don't buy into two completely different games for the same experience. That's why we have an endless choice of games to play, because they all offer eye-to-eye different experiences for us to invest our time in, and we identify that style of gameplay with said game. So when it comes for you developers to plan a new game and just think, it worked for these guys, so why wouldn't it work for us? I'm just left scratching my head, like, where's the unique creative vision you guys have? Where's the originality? Call of Duty was once the must-buy shooter, and there is still fun to be had even in the most recent games. Call of Duty is still a good game for what it is, but I could only eat up so much before I started to get sick, and just seeing a brand new title on the shelves every single year. But the most depressing part I'll take away from this essay was that when the 7th generation started, we wanted to see what developers would bring to the table to revolutionize genres with the current hardware. And when it came to shooters, Call of Duty just saw the gold before everybody else. And in later years, all these other shooters that we also loved fell behind, and in order to shorten the gap, they decided to imitate COD, abandon their original formulas on what potentially could have been some of the best gaming experiences delivered. And it was our fault, whether you like to say it or not, it was our fault for showing gaming developers back then that that's what we wanted, that's what we were into. And I wanted to add this little section in at the end because regarding this issue, I don't think the battle is over, but this time it's not Call of Duty, it's these Battle Royale games. Now, I know a lot of you guys really do enjoy this game mode, but I know there's a lot of people that really don't and are getting sick of it. And it's maybe not as much as Call of Duty did back in the day, but there are some similarities. We know that since Battle Royale's recent spikes with PUBG and Fortnite, everybody else is considering doing their own version of it. Black Ops 4 is planning it, Battlefield 2018 is planning it, Red Dead Redemption 2 is considering it. All of these other big budget companies that recognise the potential and could sacrifice precious time into something that just a lot of others are into lately, instead of focusing on the core experience of their game. Improving off of previous installments, proper innovation. So this is my question to you guys, because this video goes beyond Call of Duty. Will you guys accept, when it comes to development of a game that you're excited for, instead of having it stand on its own 2 feet, they just play the safe choice by jumping on these bandwagon of trends? Because if they do, we may never know what creative vision that could be plugged just a bit deeper under the brains of these developers. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave comments if you have thoughts. And I'll see you guys all again soon. Take care of yourselves. Have a good day. Bye.